Dukes Nation, this is your home for all things Duquesne University athletics, whether it's basketball or football or soccer or lacrosse or volleyball, track and field, golf, swimming, you name it, everything in between. If it's happening at UPMC Cooper Fieldhouse, Arthur J. Rooney Athletic Field, or anywhere our Dukes play, you're going to hear about it here. Hello and welcome, Dukes fans. You are looking at co-producer Rudy Longarini inside the worldwide headquarters and studios of All Dukes Sports Talk. I'm Bob Healy III, joined as always by Nick Frost, and we are uniting Dukes Nation for a conversation on all things Duquesne University athletics. So without further ado, let's get to it, and let's go Dukes! Hey Dukes Nation, welcome back to All Dukes Sports Talk. This looks a little different, I know. This is not a split screen, by the way. This guy I'm going to show you literally right next to me. I can reach out and touch him. He came all the way from California, and he's staying with me in the South Hills of Pittsburgh. Mr. Rudy Longarini has made it to Pittsburgh to be a part of this show. Rudy was here for the Atlantic 10 Championship Tournament. We got to see a win. Would have loved to have seen more. The Atlantic 10 Championship Tournament just wrapping up today, Sunday, March 15th. It was a 70-62 final. VCU takes down Dayton to clinch the Atlantic 10's automatic qualifier to the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Championship Tournament. Ironically, the guy who lives in Pittsburgh is not in this room with me right now. He's joining us via Zoom, though. Nick Frost is back. Nick, we got plenty to get to in this version of All Duke Sports Talk, but I want to catch you up about what's been happening since Rudy got to Pittsburgh. So Rudy's been spotted at places all over town, and people keep stopping us and saying, like, I've seen you on the podcast. And, like, no one said a word to me. So this is the star. Apparently, that's the guy that people are pointing out, coming up to him at Shale's, coming up to him waiting in line out of PPG Paints Arena. So Rudy got to hang out with Norm Nixon at, was it Pizza Milano?
No, Shale's.
At Shale's. So, yeah, he's been making his way around Pittsburgh this week, and he's been sleeping at my house. And it's been fun. So, Rudy, dude, it's been awesome having you here. I'm sad to see you go.
Thank you, man.
I got to drive Rudy to the airport Monday. But in this version of All Duke Sports Talk, we're going to get to, obviously, all those things about the Atlantic 10 Basketball Championship. We have some Dave Dixon conversations we got to have about his legacy. We want to touch upon how the Atlantic 10 Women's Tournament finished up because we didn't get a chance to talk about that last time we had an episode. We also want to have some track and field news to get to. So let's just get right to it. Again, 70-62 was the victory for VCU over Dayton. Now, Nick, I know a lot of people in Dukes Nation are struggling with that because, yeah, we're happy that it's going to be a two-bid league and everything. VCU's guaranteed in, along with St. Louis, whom we all believe is going to get an at-large. By the way, the selection show tonight at 6 p.m. is when we'll find out here on Sunday, March 15th, if Duquesne indeed gets those two bids. But, officially. However, seeing VCU win also bittersweet because I think, Nick, I was at the game sitting next to Rudy, and we were pretty hot the whole game about the officiating. And I thought the Duquesne outplayed VCU. I think literally if you look at the actual sequence of events on the court, when Dave Dixon was on the floor, he was influencing every possession offensively and defensively, right? And Nick, I want to get your thoughts. If that's a differently officiated game, are we looking at a different outcome in the A10 championship?
Yeah, I'd say so. Because I think if that's a different officiated game, I mean, we kept it close throughout, even with I talked to my dad, who is a little more unbiased than I was, but he agreed that the calls definitely were in VCU's favor. And it seemed to me that it was a lot, to the point where it was kind of sad how much help they needed to beat a team that was, considered not a dangerous threat to them by the seeding. So I do think if it was a regular game with, well, I don't know if Duquesne ever has regularly called games, honestly, but if David Dixon doesn't have two clean blocks called fouls and fouls out of the game, even when he's playing with one arm, if Jimmy Williams having his arm out isn't called for an offensive foul and allowing VCU players to throw our players out of bounds while they're going in for layups, yeah, I think this results in a different score for us, and then obviously a different A10 champion, because the A10 champs ended up being VCU, and Duquesne definitely was the closest game that they had the entire tournament.
All right, Rudy, it's a family show, so keep that in mind. Let me
No,
know. What? Come
dude,
on. I mean, we watched this together. Yeah.
we were like 10 minutes into the game, and he brings up the fact that Dixon was like +5 minus on the minus +6 or something, and he was abusing their big guy, man, down low and and blocking everything within sight.
And if he wasn't blocking them, he was making them adjust, and they were
Right,
missing.
and rebounding the hell out of the ball. And so the only thing I got to say is that uh, Dixon deserves a post game, just alone on him. We're not going to get to that now, but
You
uh,
mean he gets to play, deserves to play again?
yeah, he deserved alone. If we get, Drew was saying in the post game that they would gladly accept an NIT bid if it was offered. But anyway, so yeah, phantom calls, dude.
Yeah.
Every time we got like within 2 points in the second half, dude, the refs just took over. It was like ridiculous, and then that tripping call
Oh
on the
yeah,
Ginyard
yeah,
at the very last seconds, and they called charging on him.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was I think what you're getting at is there was a play where a player clearly just blew a tire and the call was a trip on the Duquesne defense. That gets called against us, but then earlier in
Right.
that game, one of the worst, I got to be honest, one of the worst calls I've seen, and I don't say that lightly, is the charge that Ginyard was hit for at the top of the key. Because you almost never see a charge called that far out, maybe an
Right.
illegal screen, but to call a closely guarded player at the top of the
And the
three-point
guy
line,
is falling.
yeah,
So
it,
technically he tripped.
right.
He tripped
Well,
Ginyard.
You know what play I'm talking about, right, Nick? When
yeah,
the
yeah,
offensive
he was.
foul on
I mean,
Ginyard.
the defender was clear. I think it was. I don't think it was Jennings at that point, but yeah, he was clearly shuffling his feet too. He didn't beat
He
him to
was
the spot.
moving.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not only were his feet moving, his whole body was moving.
yeah,
And if you're going to call us somebody for taking a charge, to me, that has to be so cut and dry, that far away from the basket.
right.
I thought he clearly flopped in this, and I don't remember that. I should look up the name of the gentleman, but I don't want to like
No,
totally
it's all right.
call him out. But there was one of the it was an older out of the three referees. It was an older white gentleman. I don't have his name. I thought he had a terrible game. I thought he had a terrible game. I thought there was a weird situation at one point where he thought the ball may or may not have hit the rim. It wasn't clear.
Right.
He stopped the
Yeah,
play.
stop the play when TG had a wide open 3 point shot.
And
Yeah,
he was the only guy there in the arena who thought that it maybe didn't hit the rim.
right.
I thought
And
that was
then
strange.
upon replay, it showed that he was wrong. He
Yeah,
had the
Right.
yeah.
confidence to stop the entire play and everything that was going on, and then within 2 seconds of looking at the replay, yeah, you're dead wrong.
So
Congrats.
I don't know if that's also the same referee that Drew Joyce after the game was complaining about when he said he tried to call a timeout before Ginyard slipped, but none of the refs apparently saw that. Now I'll be honest, I didn't see Drew Joyce trying to call timeout because we're focusing on the ball because we're fans. But to Drew Joyce's credit, somebody should be picking him up because the Dukes have a timeout left. They're getting the ball across half court. They're down one possession, so maybe this coach is going to want to call timeout.
So there was a video that showed the angle of him from like diagonally across the court as Ginyard was bringing it up. There wasn't a ref near him. He was essentially pointing at Terrence to call timeout to the ref, but there wasn't
Right.
one close enough to him for him to actually tell the ref that he wanted a timeout. So he wasn't jumping up and down like he may have said in the post-game
Okay.
press conference, but he did appear to be pointing to Terrence to signal timeout. And obviously, the ref being across court wasn't paying attention to him; he was paying attention to Terrence. But I think it was more an issue of the refs need to be in better position where you're next to the head coach in that situation to actually let him call a timeout.
That could be fair. I mean, so to be fair to the referees, I don't want to take anything away from VCU. I think VCU is a deserving Atlantic 10 champion. These are sour grapes from Duquesne fans, but I really do believe, and I don't say this lightly because I'm at least a state official. I umpire baseball and softball from, gosh, 7-year-olds all the way through high school, college. I've done state playoff baseball games, and I've even done post, like semi-pro games. And I sympathize with referees. I don't want people. I wasn't one of the people chanting "ref, you suck." I don't do that, and I know these guys are trying their best. I'm
Pretty loud cheer, by the way.
right. Maybe one of them was here, but I don't believe for a second that these gentlemen are out there thinking, if VCU keeps winning,
Right.
maybe there's a three-bid league process. I don't believe that. I don't think for a second that crosses into their brain. But I still believe, despite all that, it was one of the worst officiated games I've seen because as an official, we're always taught, don't go looking for trouble, right? Try to stay out of it if you can. Let the players play. And there were several instances.
Well, they let one of the teams play.
Well, that's what I mean. Like there
Yeah,
were
right.
several instances
The other team play.
where Dixon, particularly Dixon, because I thought he was the best player on the floor when he was out there, despite the
Yeah.
injury. I really do.
No.
And he blocked two shots clean in a row.
Right.
Clean.
With one arm.
And
I have
those
to
last
emphasize
two
that. This was
blocks.
after his shoulder injury. He
Yeah.
wasn't moving his I think it was his right arm. He was playing left
Left
hand
arm. His left arm, I think, was
or his
hurt.
left arm. He was playing with one arm and getting clean blocks against guys that just won the A10 championship.
So there's two problems with this. One, it puts VCU at the line, and they had something like twice 25 free throws to our 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it also takes our best player off the floor, makes him, he doesn't get to play the last 4 or 5 minutes. That's a factor. I just think that those guys had an effect on the outcome, and that's just not something you want ever to be as an official, to be thought of as I had an effect. So I thought there were deserved boos. I thought there was deserved sour grapes being dished out right now by Duquesne fans. Again, VCU, you're deserving champions. I thought their fans were classy, nothing like that. But and congrats to them on winning the title today over Dayton. Thank goodness Dayton didn't win. That would have been really terrible to swallow. Do you guys think that the VCU win perhaps ups
Well,
Duquesne's NIT resume?
that's what I thought because Dayton um, losing. So yeah, I think that you know, like I said before, dude, uh, we got to if we're extending an NIT bid, we're obligated for Dixon alone to continue his legacy. Really, I mean,
We got to see if he's healthy enough too.
right,
I mean,
but but nonetheless, alone just for Dixon and his legacy, everything that he's contributed, we got to accept it. I mean, if we get it
yeah,
offered.
and I don't want to diminish the other seniors because it was their last game too. Alex Williams, I
Right.
guess technically maybe Terrence Ginyard, although he's got an appeal probably pending on his eligibility with JUCO.
Wouldn't
Uh,
that be nice?
Big John. So yeah, there's advantages to, I mean, going to the NIT versus not. But I did want, before we jump to that conversation, I did want to point out two more ref decisions since we went on to
Yep.
that thing. Jake DeMichael played like 3 minutes, got called on a phantom foul call off a free throw rebound, where they showed the slow-mo replay. I didn't see any contact whatsoever. I don't know how the refs can call a guard on something like that. And then number two, Drew could have used the challenge, but couldn't because he had already used his first and one. And I think there was like 18 minutes left in the game. But the refs botched another out of bounds play, like right in front of them, as to who the ball went out on. But again, if he uses that challenge, then he doesn't have another one. And with how the refs were calling plays, I mean, you have to keep that in case things are down to the wire and you need that call reversed later on.
Yeah, those are all very fair points. And I'm going to put here it is 12 free throws for the Dukes, 25 for VCU.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
Bob, I know your thoughts on what was in the refs' minds or not, but I can tell you, I was sitting there in that second half, the most pessimistic I've ever been, thinking it doesn't matter how well we play at this point. They're just not going to let us.
No, not right.
They're not going to. They're going to call a foul if we do get close enough where it's going to matter. They're not going to let this happen.
Okay,
That was
and
in
that's
my
look,
head
I
the
get
entire
it.
time. I can't imagine the coaches and the players. Obviously, you have to play through that, but that probably was in their minds at some point too.
Look, I don't. There's no way I can ever get into the brains of these people and say, you put a gun to my head. Am I 1,005% confident that that is the case, that they're completely unbiased? Obviously, no one ever can be because we've seen weird stuff like that before. But I can say, as an official, and like you get paid either way. And in
Yeah.
fact, if you get and we get reviewed and scored. So people who look at us like these guys who are working the A10 postseason, like I got to do a state baseball playoff game last year, and the reason is because I'm good at it, and we get scored, and people recommend us, and we get we get monitored, we have meetings. If you're doing a poor job officiating, you don't get that gig next year.
Right.
So I don't think these guys will put bad tape down themselves for the purpose of helping the conference because look, if the conference isn't going to pay them if they're badly
Yeah,
officiating,
but it's
Well,
psychological.
if the conference likes what they did, then I mean, they're
but
bad.
but but the conference. So yeah, I get what you're saying. However, the conference and the officials are independent associations,
I
right?
know.
So they
Yeah.
hire these folks, and the folks who are the officials recommend the right people. These are our best guys. They had the best game. When this gets looked at, this gentleman who had such a poor officiating performance, he's gonna. This is guy. You were off. You didn't have a good game, right? And so he doesn't get to work these next year. He doesn't get paid. So I don't think it occurs to him to throw
No,
anything.
I
You
understand
know?
that, but it's the psychology, dude. We just don't, even on a home court.
Oh, he's from
We,
Pittsburgh, though. I think
oh,
this guy.
was it the guy?
I
Okay.
mean, he
Well,
works
he
the game.
might be a Pitt fan. That might be the
Uh,
issue.
all right, listen. I'm going to use that opportunity to dovetail into something. So first of all, Jeff Capel's returning. I think it's interesting to talk about that. A lot of chat among the fans about whether or not Pitt's AD should be scheduling Duquesne basketball. I think that game should never have been off the schedule to begin with. But I want to throw this out at you. Why doesn't Pitt consider rejoining the Big East? Like I know with football, there is no Big East football, so like why don't you can maybe you stay in the ACC for football is like, I just don't think it's not working anymore for Pitt
Yeah.
right now in the
None.
ACC. Or does Duquesne ever consider something like Big East basketball? Because that's turned into such a great conference, this new rebirthed Big East. In fact, so much so that the Atlantic 10, apparently rumors are considering the Big East commissioner to come take
Right.
the
An
Duquesne job.
assistant, not a
Sorry,
yeah.
associate, yeah, associate commissioner. His name is Dan Leibovitz. This was reported by at Pete Tamel, Thamel on Twitter is where I first saw the news. So at Pete Tamel says the Atlantic 10 is targeting Big East Senior Associate Commissioner Dan Leibovitz, if I'm saying it right, because Bernadette McGlade is leaving the A10. By the way, Pete is a college football senior writer for ESPN. He's an insider for College Game Day. He's not just some random guy. I think, this has validity to it. What do we think about where college basketball is in terms of Pitt, Duquesne, Big East, ACC, and Rudy, your thoughts on that?
Well, I like I said, I'd like to see the Steel Bowl come back, but uh,
The Steel Bowl, the
yeah,
tournament between
yeah,
Pitt,
yeah,
Duquesne, and some
tournament,
others.
yeah,
Yeah,
where they would invite two other teams,
right.
and they might want to
Yeah,
pick
Robert
up.
Morris in either West
Right.
Virginia or Penn State or something like
I
that.
think, I
No
think,
reason not to.
dude,
Youngstown State, yeah.
that's what I think I would do, but I don't know, dude. Uh, I don't think there's a certain criteria of
Yeah, it's not as easy as I'm
that
making it out to be.
right
Right.
that the Big East is going to determine. I think they're probably happy with the amount of schools that they have already. But
That's fair. Yeah.
if you add somebody, I've always thought that you should add, Duquesne because of the Pittsburgh market alone, right?
There's no Pittsburgh market representation in the Big
Right.
East. That's right. When they could have that with Pitt or Duquesne.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But I don't see the both of them going in together. But I'd like to see maybe Duquesne go in. But I don't think that they consider us,
No, I think they'd be
like a
considering.
big enough school,
Well, if they had a choice, they consider
alumni.
it, which is the same reason why the Big East took Pitt back in the early '80s. So if they had a choice, they're going to take Pitt over Duquesne.
Right,
That was the decision that sent Duquesne down a spiral that we went on for 40 plus years. When Pitt jilted the Big East,
right,
or I'm sorry, jilted the Eastern Eight and went
right.
to the Big East. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Duquesne's probably not a strong enough candidate to join the Big East at this point. I don't think Pitt is strong enough to entice themselves to stay in the ACC for football only, too. I
Right.
don't think so. I think they
Good
try
point.
to grasp onto ACC because of the need for their football team to stay in a major conference. I
Right.
don't think any major conference is attracted enough to Pitt without all of their sports coming
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
that. So that's an issue that they've got to deal with, along with maybe financial issues, is so the reason why they're keeping their head coach for another year. Um,
Well, the nice thing for Duquesne then is Duquesne's not in any, I don't think the Northeast Conference is saying to Duquesne, hey, if you don't stick around, because we only play football in the NEC anyway, and women's
right.
bowling. So it doesn't change anything for Duquesne. And I think the Big East is an upgrade over the Atlantic 10 if you're Duquesne.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Wow.
I think that the A10 is a good fit for us right now, though. Maybe if we become like a Dayton-esque run here where we're constantly top four
Right.
continuously and our budget builds, then we could maybe think about moving up. But we're I mean, what, before Dan brought, so 10 years ago, I mean, there were talks that we might not be good enough to even stay in the A10. So I think we're in a good spot. I think if we continue to put up good results, the A10 conference as a whole is going to respect us a little more. Maybe officiating gets a little better consistently as well. And hopefully we can keep making longer runs in the A10 tournament. There's talks on some social media about how great would it have been if it was a Dayton Duquesne finals and that the stadium would have been packed
Right.
today for that game. But
Hey, so there's your conspiracy there. No reason to keep Duquesne out of the final. That's what I'm getting at. There's not really any way to. I mean, it would have been a great championship final if you put Dayton there
well,
against Duquesne,
the
but
true
not that they didn't show
conspiracy
up today.
theory, yeah, the true conspiracy theory would have been Dayton winning today and then the three bid league
Yep,
being a
Right.
thing.
I'm with
Right.
Um,
you.
That's what I
but
was thinking too. But 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 Dayton getting beat helps our NIT chances, I think.
it sort of does in a way, but then Dayton also is now an NIT team
Right.
versus an
Right.
NCAA
Right.
tournament team. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And
yeah,
there's a lot of good teams that got, a lot of teams have better records than we do in the conference. So
Well,
yeah.
some will turn it down though.
Right. Realistically, that's going to be the way we get in is because there's going to be so many teams that turn the NIT down, and that goes into the conversation of whether we should go into the NIT or not. I think it's a kind of a player-driven decision. If the players want to do it, then yes. Because one, I think a big advantage to that is you're keeping your core for the most part for next year if they want to do that and you do that because that's affecting their ability to really hit the transfer portal as quickly. The downside to going into the NIT or postseason play is it affects your ability to look at guys in the transfer portal. So if the players want to do it, then absolutely. If the players aren't fully invested in postseason play, if it's not the NCAA tournament, then I don't think we should commit because if the players aren't into it, then it just seems like wasted time.
Yeah, this is 10 years ago, it's a different conversation because if you're invited, you go because there's not a huge threat that you're going to lose players, right? We don't have to get a head start on this transfer portal thing. Now, to play devil's advocate with you and for both of you, it sounds like you would play like I would too, Rudy. But Nick, if your players stay and play, even the seniors who can't come back, and they want to play in the NIT, and let's say you keep winning and you stay in the public eye longer and your program looks better and you end up with a better win-loss record than you would have and yada yada, you play some postseason basketball. For the players who want to stay, the underclassmen who say, yeah, we do want to keep playing, then that is a chance to help them get better, right? The reason a lot of teams wanted to like take bowl games for football in the past and take NIT bids was like it's like free practice for next season, And again, I think it helps you recruit because I think the Duquesne culture right now with players like Dave and this identity and like Jake and Jakob and guys who are staying here is like this is a family, right? And that's kind of like the MO for Duquesne. It's the LeBron, Dambrot, Drew Joyce. They even bring it in at the end of every practice and game. It's 1, 2, 3 family. And I think that's like a big hallmark of the program. And so if you convince guys to stay and play and come back next year, then that's your identity. In fact, you might even be able to recruit some guys in based on the fact that this is a team that stays together. We wanted to keep playing. We're a family here. You
Right.
can sell potential transfers in on that culture despite this not getting a head start thing.
I don't understand the downside of accepting an IT bid.
Well, like Nick is saying, you can't go out and possibly get new players. You
Oh,
can't go out
why?
and
Oh,
start recruiting.
recruiting.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
that's
you're
right.
coaching.
But dude, I mean, what? In 2 weeks? You're not going to be on the recruiting? Well,
Rudy, I
A lot of
mean,
guys
it's
will
the
make a choice.
start.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
guys will make
the best
choices
of the
like
best
within the
guys
next
are
five
going to
days.
be taken at that point. Like it's
Right.
quick. It is. Just like NFL free agency. I mean, that first day that
Anymore.
it officially opens up,
Yeah,
all the top guys gone.
I
That's
know.
so that's the issue, and we do have a lot of holes, especially with the big guys leaving, with Alex Williams, Hughley, and Dave all graduating. I mean, that's basically our entire big guys aside from
right.
Yak. And I mean, with Yak and Jake, I've loved them here. I'm a little worried, just because I
If
mean
they're
it's
part of the
not
future.
yeah, just because it's not like the fans have been super kind to them this year. I've heard a lot of negative criticism online about them, and I feel like that probably played a role in Kareem leaving, along with him winning minutes in a bigger role his last year. But Yeah, if there's a lot of criticism, and I don't know how tuned in they are to social media, but if they do hear about it or see it, that's not going to say, well, then I should definitely stay at this program. I mean, they look how much they appreciate me. I, that's
Yeah,
a
I
concern.
understand. Yeah, this is look, which is part of the reason why I think if you're offered a lower level, one of these CBI type things, you don't take it, because it's not
No,
worth
I
the
think
trade.
NIT is the cutoff point.
Yeah, that I would toe the line there. I would compromise, and that's where I am on that. By the way, I do want to talk. So we were talking about Dave Dixon and this idea of family. I want to talk about Dave Dixon's legacy here because I think it's a very interesting conversation to have. And this is our knee-jerk, right away reaction to this guy's career, presumably ending. And we'll see how the postseason invites go. I've heard a lot of chatter from people like Johnny, who's been on this show, Johnny Heller. I wanted to get Matt Farrago's impressions on this and opinions. He might join us, by the way, as we're recording here. He's actually at PPG Paints working and helping to wrap up coverage of the A10 tournament. Matt, by the way, is a public address announcer. He runs JRM Video Productions, and he does. You've heard his voice at Consol Energy Center this season. Excuse me, Consol Energy Center, Cooper Fieldhouse rather, calling men's games for us. And so you'll recognize him if we can get him to join us. If not this week, we'll get him later. But Matt and people like Johnny and others, and this is a constant conversation where Zach Weiss has weighed in on this. Where does Dave Dixon fit all time at Duquesne? Now I want to say this, telling you that I'm the biggest Dave Dixon fan in the world. I think him coming back and playing in that game injured. I don't know if his shoulder came out and he had it popped back in. I can't say. I'm not privy to that information. It looked painful. He kept coming back and playing through it, and he played wonderfully well despite the officiating, and he almost won us the game. I love Dave. He's the all-time winningest player in our program's history, and this is one of the most storied basketball programs in the country historically. All-time leader in games played now. He won a title here. Okay, awesome. He's never been an all-conference player. He's never led the conference in anything statistically. He doesn't lead in any other career categories except for games played and wins here. I'm not a retired Dave Dixon's jersey guy. Here's why. You're talking about hanging his name up there next to
No.
Norm Nixon, Willie Somerset, Hugo Green,
Right.
Dick
You
Ricketts.
can't.
This is historically, to get your number retired here, that is a high barrier to.
High watermark.
Yeah, it is.
Are there any players that haven't made the NBA that have their jerseys retired for us?
No, they've all made at least the NBA. Yes, including Mike James.
Mike James is up
Right.
there, right?
I mean, so as far as men's numbers go, okay, but however, and by the way, Dave, who knows what his future holds? Now that being said, he's an athletics Hall of Famer for me, and I think that's where I would draw the line. So if to like make this about like another sport, look at like Andrew McCutchen. Okay, Andrew McCutchen's not a statue guy. He's not a jersey retired guy for me, for the Pirates,
Right.
because and I'm gonna let you play devil's advocate to this. You're talking about retiring the number of a guy he's not Willie Stargell, he's not Roberto Clemente, he's not even Bill Mazeroski, these guys. But will be a Pirates Hall of Famer? Yeah, he's in the Pirates Hall of Fame. To me, Dave Dixon's a Duquesne Athletics Hall of Famer because to have all-time wins on a program like this, that's awesome. He won a title here, and he's a fan favorite, bar none. He's a legend in the fans' eyes. I can't retire a jersey for a guy who's never been all conference, whether he deserved it or
Right.
not, never been, let alone all district, all American. However, the one argument you could make with me is, and maybe we'll have to look at this again in 10 years. Bob, look at college athletics, though. I mean, he'll never be another guy like him. So he is the all-time leader. He represents a bygone era. In this era of the transfer portal, well, he could have went anywhere. He stayed, and he deserves that honor because if my barrier is like, hey, you can't put him up there with guys like Hugo and Willie and Norm Nixon. If that's my bar to clear, then we're never going to retire another number because no one's going to stay long enough for it.
Well,
It's because Jimmy Clark and Day Grant, they shouldn't have the number retired either. You know what I mean? And they were better players than Dave. So maybe your argument is, good, Rudy, is that maybe he's a different kind of player and you honor him for that reason? Where do you land on it?
well, it's a tough one, but I don't think you put him into the Hall of Fame, like you said.
No Hall of Fame?
Well, not
No jersey.
no jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, and but if you do say that, who was it that did well in the NBA?
Mike James.
Mike James did well in the NBA, but he wasn't really. If you look at his stats for Duquesne,
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
But he had the longest NBA career of any
right,
Duquesne player.
but do you give that retirement because of your NBA career, or do you give it because of what you're contributing in college?
I think it's a
If you,
factor. I think it's a factor. Look,
uh,
only reason I'm in my high school's athletic hall of fame is because I did in college. If you look at it just based on my in
right,
high school, I wouldn't have made it. Like I'm just saying, like some people, you have to look at like what legacy did they leave? Mike James is the longest tenured NBA player, won an NBA title, and you look back at it and you go, yeah, we probably should do it. But that
but
was
when he
years
was,
later.
but when he was with us, I mean, he was not a remarkable player uh,
Yeah,
in
while he
our
was in
uniform
college, yeah,
while he
right.
was in college. So if you take that criteria as being the determinant, then hell, you should put Dixon in there. So because he did that in all this stuff in a Duquesne uniform.
Here's the retired numbers. Number 10, Norm Nixon. Number 11, Sahugo Green. Number 12, Dick Ricketts. Number 13, Mike James. 15, Chuck Cooper. 24, Willie Somerset. Now, Willie might have just been an ABA player. I'll have to double check that. But nevertheless, talking about major pro
Yeah.
sports, right? All right, Nick, your thoughts on that?
So I'm mostly in agreement. I do know there's been a huge push for retire number two and build a statue in some social media comments, but I don't think that he's probably going to get that honor. I do think an individual Hall of Fame induction on from the men's basketball side is still a great honor. I mean,
Yes, yes,
especially with the recent inductions. I know he's part of the team one already, but there's something added to him being an individual, along with Day Day and Trey and Coach Dambrot,
right, right.
as the individual recognitions go. And I don't know if there's going to be another one from that team that is going to get that individual recognition. So I still think that would be fitting. Uh, yeah, from a jersey retirement, it's a lot. Honestly, jersey retirements as a whole, it's kind of funny because despite 10 being retired for a period of time, Sincere was able to get
Yeah.
it out of retirement and then didn't last more than that season. But yeah, I don't know. Eventually, I feel like the jersey retirements are going to be a silly thing because, I mean, you think about it, if teams keep going and you retire all the numbers, what are they going to look like? So.
I'm with you. Look at the
You
Canadians,
don't
the
want
Yankees. They can't. Nobody has any jerseys left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you don't want to water it down
You
either.
don't want to water it down.
Right.
No, but
You
I
want to
think
keep
there's also a mystique like in soccer that number 10 is iconic and it's used as kind of a symbol of if you're the best player and you want this number, it's yours. That's kind of a thing
Right.
with that number. It's not retired, but it's still given respect when it's used.
Hey,
Uh,
that's why Sincere Carey had to ask Norm Nixon, which, by the way, I don't think he should have given him permission, but
yeah,
that's
oh to
why
use his
they
number.
need to let him use it. Yeah. But then
yeah.
it's not really retired. So, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, and with Formula One driving, the only person that's allowed to have the number one is if you were the world champion the previous season. So there are still other ways that you can honor a number without retiring it. So maybe we could even do something like that. I know the Steelers have some unofficial retired numbers that haven't been worn. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't think that there's necessarily going to be jersey retirement, but there's other cool ways that they could somehow honor him individually, even within the program where maybe fans don't even hear about it. Like the boxing gloves that they gave out at the beginning of the season, maybe they do add like a Dave Dixon moniker on something like that in the
Yeah,
locker.
yeah.
Well, listen, hopefully, though, there's a Dave Dixon Appreciation Day. He goes into the hall, there's a bobblehead. Literally, that kind of stuff is, I think, more than merited. By the way, so it looks like Matt is going to have a chance to jump in with us and honest with us here. But for the sake of keeping the show moving, I want to go to our next topic, which is the last second tip in the was it the semifinal? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Between
semifinal, Dayton,
right,
St. Louis.
Dayton, St. Louis. So it was a back and forth, incredible finish. Good for the good on the A10. It was, all-time great game. Dayton gets a tip in with zero point 0.3 seconds left. It ends up being zero point 0.5, but with zero point 0.3 seconds still showing on the clock, tip in that gives them the lead ends up being the final lead of the game. It knocks St. Louis out of the A10 tournament. A Dayton player runs off the bench, joins the celebration on the court. However, the clock is still showing time. So it wasn't like he ran on the court because time expired and they added time. This kid runs onto the court with zero point 0.3 left. Now, there are many takes on this I'm seeing, including by a colleague of mine at Duquesne. His name is Ron Dick. Some of us know Dr. Dick. He's sports marketing head at Duquesne. I'm sports media. Great guy. We're friends. Good colleague. Ron and I disagree on this, which is fine. It's just there's more than one way to look at this. He would have liked to have seen a technical foul called on the player coming off the Dayton bench because you come onto the court with the ball technically live, even though it had just gone through the hoop and it hasn't been inbounded yet.
Right.
Now, here's where I am on this. And I look at this as an official. We're always told do no harm, right? I've said this before. Don't go looking for trouble, right? It's not a problem to just you see that the ball's dead. It wasn't like it wasn't like St. Louis went over and grabbed it and tried to inbound it, and they had to stop the game because he was on the court. If you had to stop the game because he's in the way, you have no choice but to give the guy a tee. In fact, if Robbie Avila picks up the ball and inbounds it off the player, which he should have did,
Yeah.
frankly, should have did that. You have to call it. Sorry, that
Yeah.
young man's gonna have nightmares forever, but you have to call that. Now, because it didn't affect the play, you don't call it. It's easy to just go, look, they're all standing around looking at the ball, and this guy's on the court in the moment.
Dude, if we would have been that
I
team,
understand,
they would have
but
called
Rudy,
it on. They would have called it on us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But realistically, as a ref in that situation, there's no way they're not going to review the timing situation of that.
Because they did that time back on anyway.
Yeah, they did, but
Right.
like I think that's true basically universally across any close game now in that sort of situation. Not even if time's expired, they're still going to go back and look to see how much time's left because they want to give the other team just as much time as they're allowed to maybe make even another ridiculous play.
Which
So
they did. It went
they
from point
did.
3 to point 5.
So on that sense, yeah, it is a stoppage in play, but they didn't call a stoppage at that point when he ran out onto the floor. So
They did only because he was on the floor. They did. And then they added time because I
Well,
think
I
the
thi-
official smartly said, hold on, and then got the kid off the floor, and then they
Well,
added time.
I thought the assistant coach grabbed the player and took him off the floor. I didn't even see
Well,
the
yes.
refs did
But I
that.
believe the referee saw the player on the floor.
Okay.
I can't get inside his head, but he saw
Right.
him and he blew the whistle.
But realistically, I don't think he's handing that ball to Robbie without checking the time, even if that kid doesn't come on the floor.
Probably right.
But they hadn't stopped it prior to him. So that's where the gray area is. And that's where you're going into the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. And that's why there are these conflicting views. And
Says the lawyer.
Says the
I mean,
lawyer.
and
I want Nick defending me.
my
decided-
side
I
is
want
going to be
to-
whatever impacts my team better. I don't care
Hey.
in this sort of situation.
I don't see the value in the official stopping play, looking at the kid and going, bam, T, because that basically hands the game to St. Louis.
Right.
Well,
Now, I know you're supposed
it's
to
a
call it by the
one-on-one.
letter. He
It's
would have to
not-
make it, but I don't believe it's in, like you said, the spirit of the rule that this kid was actually interfering with the play. This kid was excited. They thought the game was over.
Right.
We've seen it a million times. Don't go looking for trouble. Look, I'll give you an example. In the PIAA right now, you're supposed to eject the player immediately as soon as they do like a bow and arrow neck thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And you see
Now-
those-
Cut through.
Right. Now, if a kid hits a home run, this came up at a meeting I had already this season because I umpired yesterday. If a kid hits a home run and he or she's rounding first base and they do an arrow at the visiting team's dugout, am I going to throw the kid out of the game and then listen to me, throw the kid out of the game and then have them bring a pinch runner in and finish the thing? No. Okay, I noticed that. The letter of the law says immediate ejection. I let the kid finish the trot around the bases, and then as soon as she touches home, I go, now you're out of the game. Because that just makes more sense to not insert myself unnecessarily. And I just think that a referee calling a T in that situation would insert himself unnecessarily into the play. But again, if Robbie Avila picks up the ball and tries to inbound it and can't because of this kid's presence, you have to call the T. You at that point not calling it would be inserting yourself in the outcome, right? So I think the right call was made. That's where I am on that. But
And I think that call would have been made regardless of the team. So going based off of consistency, if that call had happened in the VCU Duquesne game, I don't know if I'd be as clear-headed about they would have called it either way.
it's like we're going to say BC Duquesne. We'll see. The Duquesne might have got teed up for that.
Right.
I want to guys, I want to bring up a couple more things. And here, I actually have to. I have kind of a hard out because I have to go to my grade school travel basketball banquet outdoors today at South Park, and so that's where I'm headed after this. You guys are welcome to finish more of the show without me because Matt's going to join soon.
Right.
But I want to mention a couple other things happening around Duquesne athletics. Is that we should acknowledge Rose Kuchera. And the credit to Zach Weiss, who's helped me with the pronunciation. He believes that's also the right pronunciation. Zach Weiss, of course, from on3.com. Says Kuchera. Rose is the first ever NCAA indoor championships qualifier for Duquesne, NCAA D1. That's really hard to make in indoor because they just take the top performers regardless of conference finish. So she she got a legal mark. She finished in the top 16. I think she was 14th. That makes her a second team All American. So Rose is the first NCAA Division One All American in indoor track and field in men's or women's in program history. So that's really cool. Congratulations to Rose. As far as other stuff we didn't mention, the women's basketball tournament. Last time we had a show that had completed, we kind of focused on Duquesne and neglected to point out that Rhode Island were the champs of the Atlantic 10 women's tournament. Nick, you don't think that the A10 is looking at two bids? Richmond probably doesn't get in on the women's side. I know we'll find out at 6 o'clock tonight on the 15th for sure, but your thoughts?
Yeah, so they're kind of like on really on the bubble. There's websites that have them as the last four in, first four out. But the A10 usually doesn't get as much respect on the women's side. So the fact that they didn't make it to the finals, I know I compared it to when Duquesne made it as an at-large when not winning the conference championship tournament. We were co-champs that season for the regular season, and we didn't celebrate confidently that we were into the tournament until they won that semifinal game to get them into the championship. I feel like their loss against George Mason in the semifinals might have been just one round too soon. If they lose in the conference championship, I think they're in. I don't. Richmond was a preseason top 25 team, so that might bring some sway where they started higher, so maybe they did get enough buffer to get in. But if they get in, I think it'll be in that kind of play-in round sort of scenario.
Yeah, you're referring to the 2016 season, when April Robinson led Dukes got in. Like you said, it took an extra win or two to feel pretty confident about it. So Richmond might be one win shy of that. By the way, speaking of being confident and going out too soon in your conference championship, Miami of Ohio, that's an interesting case. Miami of Ohio, if they'd have won maybe one more tournament game, they lost in the quarterfinals of the MAC, right? MAC, I'm pretty sure. And they have one loss.
Their first conference tournament game. They did.
Oh, right, because they had the double. They probably had a bye till then.
Yeah.
What do we think about them? I think I think you have to put them in the NCAA tournament. I mean, I know the polls mean less than the net rankings do, right? But they're an AP top 25 team. They had one loss. How do you keep them out? Now it does mean that somebody else in the MAC is now a bid stealer, and it's a two bid conference, which historically it isn't. But I think to me, they're comfortably Miami of Ohio an 11 or 12 anyway, maybe now a 13. But I don't see how you keep them out. What about you, Rudy?
Well, like you said, only one loss the whole
The whole
season.
season.
You got to put them in there. I mean, even if they come from a lower class conference, yeah, you has got to put them in there. I would put them in there.
Yeah, and if not, they're going to take away our NIT bid. But yeah,
But
how about you, Nick?
yeah, I think they're in, and I think realistically, if they don't get in, that's just another sign that college basketball kind of ruined this March Madness element that we loved.
Yeah.
And it's slowly been going that way with the more bids going to the at-large bids going to the major conferences. But I mean, if a team literally loses one game all year and doesn't make it, that's a death blow to really like any of the minor conferences at that point to thinking that they have a shot.
Yeah, what are we doing here? I'm with you. Like, why would teams even play a conference championship tournament? So I'm with you on that. I think years ago the Ivy League, right, used to not have a conference championship tournament, and now they do, and it's for the better of everybody. I mean, this is part of what the overall idea of March Madness. I know, like the NCAA trademark of March Madness is the Division One tournament that happens after conferences were done, but this idea that the NCAA brands itself as this is March, anything can happen. That just means another team in the MAC could win. It shouldn't mean that a team that had an undefeated regular season should stay out.
Mhm.
So that's how I think it's for the health of the game. It makes sense for them to be in there. It's not like they're undeserved. Here's a weird connection, by the way. My high school offensive line coach, who was at my high school Hall of Fame induction ceremony, his son is from Upper St. Clair, which is in Western PA. They actually beat. He dominated the WPIAL title game against Baldwin a couple of years ago. He plays at Miami of Ohio, and so I've kind of been rooting for them. So I'm not totally unbiased here. It's from the Robbins family. If anyone knows him, the kid Robbins is on their team, big kid, but he's a local boy, Upper St. Clair. So good luck to Miami of Ohio. I'm rooting for them. Hope they at least get the dance. Guys, if he makes it, now I'm going to let Rudy take over the camera here because I got to go to this banquet today. But I wanted to say, oh here, so Matt's having trouble joining. I'm going to help him out. Why don't you
All right,
talk to,
come on,
to
all right.
Nick while I troubleshoot, okay?
Right, Nick. Uh, just on for general purposes, wanted to find out what your MVP dude is for the season.
For the season as a whole, uh, I mean, there's two obvious candidates. There's a lot of guys that I would consider. I'll give shout outs to the Williams brothers because they came on strong, and whenever they did come on strong, those were wins. So they were kind of more X factors than anything. TG seems like the on paper pick. I mean, he's first team all conference and everything along those lines. But uh, as we've talked about, Dave, I do think he was kind of the leader of this team. I think his presence in particular turned the season around. Whenever he got those more minutes, that's when the team identity clicked. That's when everything started going. I think if he doesn't get that opportunity, then we don't have nearly as successful of a season. So I'll give it to Dave as my season MVP with deferential nods and it, TG, Jimmy Williams, Alex Williams, all fantastic seasons. Dave is still the MVP of his senior year.
Yeah, I agree. And then I guess before he came on so strong in the last what 7 games of the season, and the ball moved better with him on the court. He was exceptional, a double machine in the last 5 or 6 games, and um, and so I think that I would make him. I a couple shows back I was saying that we should give it to Ginyard, but in reality I think because of how he came on and Ginyard basically the last 2 games, just didn't have uh, the last 2 games. We just were not very good for Ginyard. Like
VCU gave him troubles earlier this year. I think they have a good game plan against him that he
yeah,
hasn't been able to counter with. Hopefully, he's on our team again next year, and he has a chance to redeem himself against them. But yeah, I agree. He struggled a little bit, especially with this last game. And Bob did send in a text to make sure we bring up that Dixon was somehow left off of the all defensive team in
right,
conference,
right. It's
which is
inexcusable.
it's happened every year. Every year, I feel like it shouldn't happen, but I think it's just because of the minutes allocation and with the foul trouble, he's never really played like a 30-minute per game role. So I feel like they're giving him a knock there. But yeah, I think he is probably one of the best, if not the best, conference defensive player that has never won been on an all defensive team.
Right, right. Yeah, he didn't make it last year or any year,
He's
did he?
never
No.
made it, which is a shame because I think he's clearly been one of the five best defensive players for at least 3 of his years here.
Right, right. And so what is it that as far as the women are concerned, what is it that you anticipate happening? Um, and hear anything from Dan, Bert, as to what his overall going into next season is going to be?
Yeah, I think that he's confident that the core of the team's going to remain. I don't know if there are going to be a few people that leave, but if they are, I'm confident they'll have a backup plan in place. I know his main goal is to bring in a point guard this transfer portal offseason. I don't think it's going to be a freshman. I think he's going to bring in somebody who is experienced and can be an immediate impact player because that seems to be what we were missing for a good chunk of this season. So if we add that along with literally all of our players returning that played this
Right.
year, it should be a much better season next year.
Rudy, because he's been a local celebrity this week, has bounced around.
I'm not a
No, this guy's, you have no idea the kind of fraternizing he's capable of. No, Rudy got us a bunch of nice guests, and so we actually are going to get. We think Norm Nixon's going to join us for a show. As cool as that would be. So Norm, one of the all-time greatest athletes in Duquesne athletics history. We're going to get Norm on the show. Now, we don't know if next week will be our final week because for a while, for a while anyway, because we don't know if Duquesne's going to keep playing this season. Chuck Cooper the third also is going to be.
Yeah.
We're going to get him pretty soon. And we'll try to get Matt on the show. He's having technical difficulties right now, but that's okay.
We could finish it up.
Yeah, but I did want to point out, I'm glad you guys brought up the Dixon thing. Found it very puzzling. I think when Dave's on the floor and at his best, he's the most impactful defensive player I've seen in the conference, of the games I've seen. I'm far from neutral on that, but he at least deserved the all defensive nod. Now, as far as you guys were talking about the ladies while they stepped out, I know, like Meg McConnell was saying, she hopes Bortis stays. I think
Right.
Bortis being a local kid is a factor. I don't think that she wants to deviate too far from home. I mean, she's from Wheeling. She's going to school at Duquesne. It's like she can live on her own and grow up on her own in college, but not be too far from where she's from and her market. And I think it
And her
helps her. Yeah,
parents
it
come
helps
to
her
the game.
brand, to stay local like that.
Right.
And I think Meg McConnell honestly is a good template to show that, like, hey, you can play high level basketball at Duquesne, the Atlantic 10, and make it to the WNBA. Go play in Europe if you want. And honestly, Dan Burt always recruits like that. So, Dan's wife, former European professional. She is a European. She works for Google in Pittsburgh, though, so successful businesswoman outside of that. I think she shows a template that Dan recruits on, in terms of how he gets players and what outcomes could be like for you, basketball or otherwise. So, I mean, and I do believe in Dan Burt and his staff, and I love how they kept that team together at the end of the year. I'm very bullish on the women, very optimistic. I'm more worried about a player like Raven Washington disappearing,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, dude.
You know,
She's coming on,
and you
man.
can't teach size.
And right,
Yeah.
Kepi size and great bloodlines, man.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, but a lot of people don't realize her family, Ralph Sampson.
It's Ralph Sampson,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you Google that guy, you'll see the body type,
Yeah.
tall and lean. And
Lanky.
I think
Yeah.
Sampson was like 7'4". So I'm excited about her. I like Harriet Ford. I like a lot of the size the women have is
Right,
terrific because
right.
they were missing that, I think, for a good time.
Super young. Super young.
Looks like we're not going to get Matt today, but we're going to work on him in the future. Want to give a shout out, send some love to our buddies at Shale's Bar.
Yeah, yeah, them. They've been feeding us all night long. The 2 nights we were there, man.
Yeah. Rudy really held court at Shale's, and he had everybody there eating out of the palm of his hand.
And,
He was the
and
man.
Norm was there. Got a picture with Norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Rudy, was Shale's the place to go back when you were in school? Because I know that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the place to go.
But there was a couple of more dive bars back then that are no longer there, like San Androni's. You never heard
Never heard of that place.
That was really bad of it.
But we're happy to report that Shale's is still being run by people who love Duquesne.
Yeah, yeah. So,
You got
dude,
the business card of the owner? Is it
I
Tim?
got the business card from the
Was it
owner,
Tim? I forget his first name.
Jimmy,
Jimmy.
and
Thank you, Jimmy, for taking care of us.
and I hit him up, dude, Nick, about being a sponsor.
So, no
and
pressure, Jim.
And he did not say no.
That's right.
He did not say no.
You know what? If the Dukes were going to go advance all the way to the title game today, we were thinking about doing a live show from Shales.
Yeah.
So we're throwing it out to Jimmy that, hey, listen, we want to at least thank you for your hospitality, for giving us all the tequila.
The last 3 rounds. I mean, 4 rounds are completely free.
I don't know if you can tell by the camera, but there is a weight difference between me and Rudy. So I drove home. And Rudy's still recovering from that. So, guys, I think that's all the topics I had. Nick, do you have anything else to add here before? It's not the last show of the season. We're going to do at least one more to kind of look forward to next year.
Right.
And we'll also touch base about whether or not anyone is still dancing out of Duquesne. But go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I just want to give my final thought was going to be a shout out to the women's golf team, specifically Sasha Petrochka, who actually
good player.
had, an under par round over a tournament recently, first time in program history. So a cool nod. And as a person who does attempt to golf every now and again, never even dreamed of coming under par, and she did it twice in a 3-round weekend. So hats off to her. Great performance. And she was part of the all-conference first team in the preseason. So
Yeah.
Good player. She last year, I think, had actually been a medalist, if I'm not mistaken, once. Like she won an event, if I'm not mistaken. So she had that program first as well. So you only be first once. And she's absolutely one of these women's golf pioneers at Duquesne. So yeah, shout out to Sasha. I have literally one birdie to my credit my entire life. So I've had par on 2 holes in my whole life, but no one birdie. So yeah, that's a good call. Anything else, Nick?
You must suck, man.
Real bad. Now I can hit it far, but it's not going straight.
Right.
Yeah.
no, I think that's really the only thing other than everything else I've already talked about. David Williams, also known as Debo Will Dubs on online
Okay.
met me in person, gave his appreciation to the show for us doing what we do. Uh, Said he could happily join and probably do just as good of a job, if not better. Uh, I mean, I feel like that's a lot of the Duquesne community. If you have opinions, feel free to send them along. We'll add them to the show.
And a reminder then that's a good. I want to remind people, and I'm going to bring this up, Nick. But yeah, we are on Twitter, and we've added a ton of followers while we've been hosting the tournament.
Right.
So shout out to some of those folks that we've gotten a bunch of new followers, and I'll hit a couple of them up here real quickly. But some of these folks, Brendan Flatto, Donovan Cranage, Will McDonald, Mike Butler, it's Alex Kwong Sanity. He's sports equipment extraordinaire around Pittsburgh. Diane Monaco, Horace Jones, Carla Zovko, Matt Marcinko. So we see you guys, Maureen Miller, Max P out there, Tim Lawrence, what
We
have you.
appreciate you guys.
Please keep following. We're going to keep talking Duquesne sports. If you haven't followed us yet, I'm going to share this screen. It is at Duquesne Sports. And so the official name on there, the profile name is All Duke Sports Talk in quotations, but it's at Duquesne Sports, your podcast or YouTube show covering all things Duquesne athletics. And we've loved doing this with you the last couple seasons. This one's been more fun than last season when the Dukes men got off to a rough start and never really got their feet moving. Can't wait to keep doing it. Rudy, I want to thank you for visiting me this week. This has been a blast. I take him to the airport Monday, so I got one more night with them, and I'm not maybe Shale's one more time if they got the
Maybe,
power.
maybe,
We'll see.
maybe.
Nick, anyone
I
you
w-
want to shout out otherwise? Did you hit
Uh,
anybody?
well, you know what? I'll give shout outs to the two players. Jake, congrats on getting back in and making that three, making the most of your moment.
right, right.
Good call.
And I feel like we should all end the podcast with a little Dave Dixon.
Yeah.
Good
Shoo,
love.
shoo, rah, rah. That's what I think.
Dave, we love you all the time. You're a legend here on the Bluff, and it was an awesome send off. I thought when the fans stuck around to cheer Dave one more time.
Yeah.
He didn't deserve to foul out that game, and so I'm glad he got the ovation. And who knows, maybe we'll see him play at least one more time in the red and blue. So until next time, remember at Duquesne Sports, and also remember to click the subscribe button and follow us on YouTube. What now? Hit the subscribe button. That's what you were gonna say.
No, shoo, shoo, rah, rah.
Let's go,
Let's
Duquesne.
go,
Go
Duke.
Dukes.
All right, see you, folks.